Hi, welcome to A Bit About. A bit about what, you ask? We give you easy to follow explainers for the tech things that you should know about. Scratch that. Well, that's what we usually do, but not this time. In this video, we'll shift gears a bit and cover some current technology news along with a very interesting FAQ. Let's start with the global chip shortage. No, not potato chips. There's enough of those, as you can see. The integrated circuits that power most of our electronics are commonly known as chips, or semiconductor chips to differentiate them from their unrelated tasty namesakes. Semiconductor chips are tiny computers that power every electronic device, from your phone to your laptop, your car, and even newer household appliances like microwaves. There's been a global shortage of those chips since 2020. If you're a gamer, you might have noticed how rare the PlayStation 5s have been since they launched. And don't get me started on graphic cards. That should be a whole other video. But why is there a chip shortage? Well, that's mostly down to two main things. One, the pandemic. Yes, we're still dealing with the pandemic. The COVID pandemic led to a lot of people staying home across the globe, with millions of people making use of remote work and learning technologies. Zoom and Microsoft Teams engaged in a war of popularity as more and more people took meetings, dating, and work online. This resulted in very high and unprecedented demand for computers, cameras, networking equipment, gaming consoles, and other consumer electronics. All these things needed chips to make, and companies from HP to Samsung used a lot of their stockpiles of chips to make them. The demand rose even as the major chip manufacturing, mostly located in China and neighboring countries, closed down amid strict lockdowns. So new chips were not being made, and everyone began running out of chips. Chip makers have customers in many industries, but apart from consumer electronics, the other big customers are industrial clients such as car makers and aircraft manufacturers. Since no one was going anywhere, there was low demand for vehicles. So early on in the pandemic, before people started buying more electronics, chip makers projected that lockdowns would reduce the demand from these industrial clients and cut production accordingly to avoid unnecessary costs. When demand instead went up because of all the work from home culture, they were caught unprepared. And when lockdown started easing in 2021, industry started to open up again and ramp up production. It was a perfect storm. 2, the US-China trade war. This is that relationship that you're kind of involved in even if you don't want to be. You keep hearing about it and being dragged into it. Kind of like Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. The trade war between the US and China that began during the administration of the former President Donald Trump and that is still ongoing made it impossible for US companies to buy chips from some of China's largest chip makers. So even as China resumed chip production, the big US companies were increasingly unable to buy chips from them due to the trade restrictions. US companies were forced to shop in Taiwan and South Korea, the other big players. But these countries were already producing at maximum capacity to meet the needs of a world emerging from lockdowns. Also, it didn't help that Taiwan suffered its worst drought in decades, and chip production uses a lot of water. Basically, everything that could go wrong went wrong. Dear universe, it's not a test, don't make it worse. In addition to these factors, the outbreak of war between Russia and Ukraine led to a shortage of particular raw materials, palladium and neon, used in chip production, which happened to be found in Russia and Ukraine. Experts now predict that the shortage will last up until 2025. So if you notice electronics becoming more expensive, now you know why. Okay, enough about chips. Let's talk about this other crazy thing that happened, this time in crypto. If you haven't watched our Bit About Ethereum video, now would be a great time to check it out, to get some background on cryptocurrencies. The link is in the top of the screen now. Cryptocurrencies are digital currencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum. Most cryptocurrencies are traded on exchanges where their value fluctuates according to the market forces, just like fiat currencies. Say what? Fiat. Isn't that some Italian car company? Well, yeah, but in financial lingo, a fiat currency means any government-issued currency. The Kenya shilling, the Swedish krona, the US dollar, and so on. The usual currencies that countries have. Cryptocurrencies are famous for their fluctuation. It's why many people speculate on their value. They've made millionaires and bankrupted people as they go up and down. However, there's a special group of cryptocurrencies known as stablecoins, which are usually pegged to a fiat currency, such as the US dollar. A stablecoin aims to provide a way to take a break from the constant volatility while still staying in the crypto market. For example, if you buy Ethereum, which doubles in value, you can exchange your profits from Ethereum to stablecoin, so that in case the value of Ethereum falls again, you still have your gains. A stablecoin known as Tether, or USDT, is pegged to the US dollar. One USDT has a value of $1, and all the USDTs in circulation are backed by actual dollars in some account somewhere. There's been some controversy about whether this is actually the case, but we'll not get into that. So far, USDT has earned the trust of the crypto community for years, along with other stablecoins that operate in this way, backed by government money. If you sell crypto for USDT, it's as good as having dollars, but you don't have to leave the crypto space, so you can jump back in at any moment's notice. The thing with the crypto community, though, is that the principal goal of cryptocurrency is, from the time of Bitcoin's initial release, was to become a universal replacement for money. Bitcoin became popular because of the idea that it was not controlled by anyone, especially not a government. So having stablecoins that relied on government-controlled currency, like the US dollar, for their stability went against the decentralized spirit of this goal. People needed stablecoins, but they wanted stablecoins that were independent of government money. Programmers began experimenting with what became known as algorithmic stablecoins. Wow, that's complicated. Just give me my money, right? These are stablecoins that aren't backed by anything. They maintain their value by software that manages their quantity, reducing and increasing the supply as needed. Basically, like an AI central bank. Instead of the stability of the coin being dependent on how much government-issued money is stored in the same account, the stability is dependent on software. Sounds futuristic? Well, yeah, and that's why it's a very difficult thing to pull off. Many projects tried and failed to make a successful algorithmic stablecoin. Which brings us to Luna. A stablecoin called Terra USD, or USD, was created in 2018 by Terraform Labs as an algorithmic stablecoin. The UST was guaranteed to stay at the value of $1 via software. The founders did a lot of marketing around that claim that theirs was the solution, the stablecoin that would finally achieve stability without being backed by cash. It worked by pairing the UST with another cryptocurrency called Luna. To buy the UST, you use Luna. The software then takes the Luna that you pay with and destroys it, reducing the supply of Luna and making its value go up just a bit. It then creates some UST for you, so that the value of UST drops slightly since the supply has increased. To buy Luna, you use UST. The software takes the UST you pay with and destroys it, reducing the supply of UST and making the value go up slightly. It then creates some Luna for you, so the value of Luna drops slightly since the supply has increased. So let's just say UST suddenly falls in price to $0.9. Traders are then incentivized to buy Luna. And as I explained, the price of UST rises back up to the $1 target. If the price of the UST rises, on the other hand, let's say to $1.1, then the traders are incentivized to buy the UST, which makes the price of the UST fall back to the $1 target. We won't go into the specifics of how the incentives work, but the system worked very well from 2018 to 2022. In May 2022, a manipulation of the market happened when some investors dumped a lot of UST into the market. This caused the price of Luna to drop dramatically as traders battled to remove the excess UST from circulation. As more Luna was produced, the price of Luna dropped and people started selling off their Luna rather than just using it to buy UST. The drop in the UST price thus continued and traders began to abandon it in panic, moving their funds towards safer spaces like cash and Bitcoin. As traders dumped both UST and Luna, their values went into freefall. The trust in the system was broken. Within less than a day, the entire system collapsed and many exchanges stopped trading in Luna and UST as their values approached $0. It's estimated that $45 billion was lost, and many people lost their savings or were left with unimaginable debt. Stories of devastated investors flooded social media. A general sell-off of cryptocurrencies began since many ordinary investors can't tell the difference between one cryptocurrency and another, and panicked even if they were not exposed to the Luna ecosystem. The crypto markets are still trying to recover. In recent days, Terraform Labs is trying to relaunch with new Luna 2.0. But so far, the general public remains suspicious. Well, that was quite a ride. Chips, stablecoins. But there you have it, news brought to you by me. Speaking of me, let's do a get to know your uncle session. I have questions in these envelopes that I will read out. Think of it like an interview. Okay, let's do this. What do you want to know? Describe yourself in 15 minutes. Oh, 15 seconds. My name is not a description, but my name is Lois. I like to have fun. I like being outdoors. I like to laugh. I try not to describe myself based on what I do. It's 15 seconds up because I don't like pressure. Yeah, so I think that works. Next. How did you start doing tech explainers? Okay. So a couple of years ago, I started expanding my social circle. Like I said, I love people. And I met a bunch of amazing people. Two of which in the group were in tech, one of which is like my closest best friends to date. Every time he spoke, I got interested, and it was like, so what is that? And what is that? And then what is that? And he never got tired of answering my questions. Yeah, that's how I got into tech and learning what I know bit by bit. Next. What do you hope to achieve by doing these explainers? So what I hope to achieve by doing these explainers is to make tech easy to understand. It's kind of like a boys' club right now, where when you hear about it, it's like you're in a classroom, and we try to not make it feel like you're in a classroom. So I hope to make it relatable. That's my main goal. I'm not littering. I promise I'll pick it up. Where do you see the channel in a year? If I could be shooting from the Maldives, that would be nice. But that's not the channel, that's me. Where do you see the channel in a year? In a lot of conversations, I would love to see the channel used to explain things to baby kids in schools, used by people who are already, because tech is emerging while if you're already an adult, you're older than it. So you get to use a channel like this to be able to understand what's happening in the space without feeling irrelevant or like you're getting out of date. Oh, in a year, I would love to actually see what happens in a year. Next, are you single? Why is this necessary? Did my auntie send this to you? Am I single? Yes, like Luna, before it crashed, we tried to stay at the value of 1. Okay, we don't try to, we just currently are at the value of 1. Whew. You already asked me I'm single, so I want to see what this one's about. Why tech? Why not fashion or relationships like everybody else? Well, no one is one thing. Like, you don't have to like fashion and not tech, or tech and not fashion, or relationships. People are multifaceted. I guess life is what happens when you're busy making plans, because tech is something it's too loud to ignore. And I like learning new things and staying up to date, even in the slightest bit. So that's why tech right now. But clearly you can see I like fashion. And I just said I love people, so relationships is also there. Nobody is one thing. Nobody is just one thing. Thank you. All right, don't forget to subscribe. I think it's right here, here. Bye.